All right, traders, happy Friday. This is Christian Promhertz, Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Friday, September 25th, the end of the week, the end of the weakest week of the year in terms of seasonality. So, a couple questions to kind of see if we can answer for the day in this particular video is, you know, are we out of this short-term downtrend? Being that we're also out of the weakest week of the year, does that mean that things kind of perk up a little bit? And basically, what I look at is, a lot of times as I go through in these videos, I'm looking for what goes on above the hood, which is my little phrase, above the hood trend and price. And really, what I'm looking for is to read that appropriately, to kind of find out if the opportunities, the investment landscape is something that I think is positive or negative at the time frame. And then of course what we're looking at is under the hood, and I'm looking at market internals and also some things that kind of give us a signal as well. So let's start with the performance for today, and then I'll talk about the performance for the week. But this was nice. This was something different. This was a strong breath day, and I can show you that here. Hopefully you could read the numbers. I know they're a little bit in small font, but we had 25 advancers in the Dow and 5 decliners. Really, what was nice here is the S&P as well as NASDAQ. The S&P had 435 advancers, 67 decliners. That's some pretty strong breath, I thought, for the day. Also, NASDAQ, 1,996 advancers, 694 decliners. So this was something that we really haven't seen in a while. We haven't seen strong breath, right? That's been a big problem and kind of a warning signal for the market. 4-week new highs versus new lows. We're continuing to see more new lows. I think it'll be a little while before some new highs kind of materialize. But we'll basically, we'll monitor this. What we really saw this week was a breakdown in breadth. And, this is going to have to improve. And, we'll kind of take it day by day with this situation. But, that's a nasty move down in market breadth. So that's going to have to improve. Again, we won't see where today's action is until either, I guess, Saturday. Bloomberg will come out with the number, because this only updates once a day. The put call ratio, as well, is something that we talked about, ticked up as well. I'm not sure if I would say that got like a check mark, in terms of seeing heavy fear. I think it ticked up a little bit, but it didn't show a major, level of fear that we like to see for reversals in the market. But, I'm not sure that it always has to get to that fear standpoint for us to move. So let's go through sectors as well. It was kind of, I would say it was for the day, and one day is not a trend, but this was risk on, right? Meaning a lot of the higher beta areas of the market did very well. Solar names were up huge, clean energy, biotech. Aerospace and defense did also very well today. When I look at absolute performance for the day, what else am I seeing? And the internet stocks were up 2.5% for the day. They should be in here someplace. Yeah, software was up 2.8%. So yeah, this was risk on for the day. The only thing that did not do well, once again, is your energy stocks. The performance for the energy stocks for the week, unbelievable. And it's one of those things that kind of backs up my trading system, right? In terms of not playing things that are down. I want to own names that are breaking out, that are going higher and higher and higher. I don't want to look for names that are continuing to break down and go lower. Trends usually stay in trends for longer than people. Nobody can predict how long a trend is going to last, right? And the whole thing is to be mechanical in sticking with the trend or lightening up when a trend breaks down. Moving to more neutral when things are sideways, and then waiting for the next leg up. That's kind of what we do. It's kind of what I do, in terms of trend following, and really try to avoid the underperformers. So let's talk about where do I want to take this next, this video for the day. So when I sent out today's member midday video, I always do, at Tribeca Trade Group, what we do is on Mondays and Wednesdays, we do Q&A, where I always start the Q&A, talking about what my market view is, and then we kind of go into various different charts and so forth. And on Friday, what I do is kind of a look ahead, what I'm thinking about for next week, and what the market is kind of telling me. And then we also do, Q&A. So what I said today was, hey, this is kind of the first day that I've really gotten a little bit more positive. And this was midday, so this was before things really got going. But just started to see, one of the things that helps, in my opinion, is to not only look at the indices and figure out what they're telling you in terms of long-term trend, short-term trend, but also look at individual setups. Looking, again, I don't want to say under the hood because I use that term for looking at market internals, but looking at some of how the names are performing and kind of breaking them down. I'm like, hey, some things look pretty damn good, in terms of setup. So I'll go over a couple of those that I shared with members earlier in the day. But if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, there's a lot more. I don't share that much on Twitter because I give that to members first, right? So I really don't put out that much information in terms of what we do in the trading room on a day-to-day basis. So if you're not a member and you've never tried being a member of Tribeca Trade Group, I would say go to my profile and you can click on here, and that's where you can go ahead and check us out and check out our trading room. All right, and again, I think we have the best community of traders out there. I'm really impressed how well everybody kind of handled the last couple of weeks. We really work together as a team, and try to help one another out and get each other to to being profitable and to trading the market appropriately, not taking too much risk when when the wind is at your face. Right, it's an analogy that we've been using a lot versus when the wind is at your back. So let's talk about, are we out of the short-term downtrend? Well, so two things that took place a few things I think that are positive, like boxes that were checked, right? We know that I talked about this virgin point of control being taken out, right? So once that is out, you can often see reversals off of that. And I did put that on Twitter yesterday. I said, that's why, let's see if I can find that. I gave an example because I don't think a lot of, which is perfectly understandable. These are different concepts that I use versus what a lot of people do. But this was something that we talked about yesterday morning. Yeah, so point of control. Right, we talked about this yesterday once it was just taken out. And I said, virgin point of control, the analysis here is sort of similar to a gap. Price seeks out a high volume area, right, and that's what a point of control is. These are virgin point of controls. Price has never revisited them. So often, not always 100% of the time, but often there can be a reversal off of them. So I think that worked pretty darn well. Here's what it looks like now. So this works. Again, it's not going to work 100% of the time, but you could see if we go to the 5-minute chart, it really will give you a guide in terms of where to kind of think about taking off profits. Where to be putting on trades, where to be giving things a shot, and where to be taking off some things too. And if you look today at the 5-minute VPOC, right? So we had a little bit of an issue getting out of value for the day on the 5-minute bar. We hesitated there, kind of moved back in, broke out, rechecked back, broke out, rechecked back, and then we basically went. Right? So that is kind of how the majorities of the breaking of the value for the day works. If it's a really powerful volume day, price will just get through the value area. But a lot of times it's this, back and forth, because this is a resistance area for the day, right? We're talking about super short term. So if you wanted a place to take profits, what we talked about in the room earlier was this virgin point of control was a good place to shoot for. So this helps in terms of helping you figure out where you want to be adding risk versus taking it off. This is not a place to be putting on risk, in my opinion. It's a place to be taking off trades or taking some profits. Again, short-term stuff. All right. So if we go to the 1 hour chart, right? One of the things that you've heard me say over and over and over the last couple of weeks is that we're in a short-term downtrend. So we're kind of testing this. We needed to get out of the basement. That's not a perfect. Let's see if I can try doing this a little bit better. All right. So maybe if we shoot for this. Right, so we're gonna be up against, or maybe we kind of got out of this a little bit, right? So let's. I think this is a good trend line to keep in here. All right, so this is for S&P. It's close. I'm sorry, that trend line is not touching perfectly. So let's zoom in here a little bit. So yeah, this is, again, we finished up 1.5%. We're close to getting out of the short-term downtrend. We're going to need probably one more day to kind of figure that out, or if we kind of go sideways, maybe 2 days. So we're going to know soon, I think, whether or not this was a real move. But it's constructive, right? This is where you kind of have to start someplace. And I think this was a good move. So we'll know, going into next week. And I'm a bit optimistic because we're out of this weakest week of the year. This looks a little bit more constructive, right? Now, we did not get out of this. This was the last peak that we made. So we have not made a higher high here yet or a higher low. So this, again, it's a move in the right direction, but we don't know yet if we're going to be breaking out of this trend officially, right? Good to see us recoup this 200 period moving average, right? And every time that we've recouped this a little bit, we failed. So again, we'll see how this develops for next week. So that's kind of what the indices are showing us, right? And if we go to the NASDAQ too on the daily or the Qs, I know people like to look at the Qs, so we'll look at the Qs. This is back in value, right? So that's a good sign too. Did we turn the corner here for the overall NASDAQ? No, we didn't. But again, it's a step in the right direction. If we look at some individual names, I think what you'll see is it's a little bit more positive of a picture depending on which names you look at. So, before I do that, let's talk about this week's performance. I like to keep like the last few weeks, which is up here, right? So we've had now 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of declines. This to me where I'm getting with this is now that we've had 4 weeks of declines. I think that we're getting pretty washed out, and this was overall a nice day. To kind of end the week, and maybe that's a good start for next week, right? To saying that we kind of ended the week on a positive note. But four straight weeks, again, if we put this in perspective and realize how far the market went up, we were due for a correction, and I think we basically got it at this point. So. We'll continue to let the price action kind of speak for some of the trades that I'm doing and so forth. But I think this is getting a little bit played out, I think, in terms of the downtrend. So there's still a lot of things that look pretty darn ugly. It was nice to see the Qs up this week. There's been 3. This broke the streak, right? So we've had 3 negative weeks for the Qs. And we did break the streak this week. We've had 4 weeks of negative S&P performance. So, and I think too, what I'm missing in this on this top line is probably the dollar. I think the dollar was part of the stronger dollar was part of the catalyst. The UUP ETF, which we talked about earlier in the week, seeing heavy buying, big block trades. There was an inflow into that UUP ETF, and the US dollar finished up over 2% for the week. So that is a headwind for stocks. That's a risk-off gauge when the dollar strengthens. So Again, we'll have to keep an eye on these things. But let's start with the underperformers first for the week, right? So this is what I talked about in the beginning of the video. This looks really bad and quite frightening, I would say. How much of a breakdown these energy stocks are having right now, along with the banks. So this is the negative, right? And this doesn't look particularly healthy either in the banks. So it could be kind of messy for the next few weeks, just because we got out of this week and we're through 4 weeks of decline. I don't know if it's going to get hugely better in terms of price performance. But I think there will be improvements because we have to get through this election, and there's obviously COVID cases are back in the headlines as well. So I think the U.S. number ticked up zero point 0.7 versus zero point 0.6. I think officially what experts say is that if COVID cases rise by, like if the daily rate is up over 1%, that means that it's basically spreading. Anything under 1% is in the safe zone. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how it materializes going forward. Again, sorry, I hate to say, we'll have to see for some of these things, but that's really what it is right now. Because one day doesn't make a trend. All right, so I mentioned that I was seeing some positive things in terms, basically kind of turn the corner a little bit. So the strong performance came out of solar names this week. FANG stocks, tech was up 2% for the week. Semis. So let's talk a little bit about the semis. I went over Qualcomm in yesterday's video. I played a little bit of AMD today. And then I did put on an NVIDIA trade today. This is, again, I like to stick with strength. And I tweeted this out earlier. I think this looks pretty good for a setup here, right? This has been consolidating a few days, and it's leaning the right way. So I do like this particular setup here. I like this, even though AMD had some strength today. It was up 3%, and I played this for a day trade. I still like I like both these companies, but I like NVIDIA a little bit better. Qualcomm still finished up 2%. There was a headline out about that name, about the FTC maybe re-examining that case that they won. So that brought this stock in a little bit. But if we start to look at Apple had a positive note out by Morgan Stanley today. They're looking like they're trying to turn the corner. They retake the 50-day moving average. They're now back inside value, so that's a positive development. If we look at Microsoft, also trying to kind of regain some territory here, finished back inside value. I don't love this one yet, but we'll see. And I don't have a position in this one. I'm watching Adobe for next week, and we'll put more of these setups together in the member weekend watch list. But I think Adobe, had strong earnings, kind of coming back here, not giving a signal yet. I like ServiceNow, right? Look at the relative strength in this name, right? So this name is now, has basically stayed above value for most of the month and is almost back to 52-week highs. So I view that as relative strength with that one. Viva Systems, right, which is another software play, also looks like it's trying. This is a name that you've had to be paid, right? One of the major themes or words that you're going to hear all the time in September is patience. This thing has gone sideways, right? So big difference again if you're playing options versus stock. If you bought stock a couple weeks ago, not a big deal to you. If you bought options, you would have lost in options, either calls or puts. So September, October, there are times, in my opinion, where you want to be trading. And this video, of course, is for information purposes only. I'm not giving out any advice or recommendations. But in my opinion, when things go sideways like this, I want to be trading less options and trading more stock, right? Because you don't get dinged on stock if the name goes sideways. Amazon had a nice day today. That is also trying to turn the corner and get inside value. That level to watch for next week is going to be right around 3096. Sorry, Thinkorswim is just making its adjustments here. Yeah, call it 3095. So that'll be a stock to watch for next week. We talked about too in the midday video that we are actually going to have earnings in about a month away. So in my opinion, the better trade is to play names into earnings, not on earnings date. I know that's counterintuitive to how most retail traders think. They want to play the earnings number, right? It's like spinning the wheel at at a casino. In my opinion, the edge is trading a name into earnings, because what happens as a name gets closer into earnings? Brokers upgrade the stock, they raise their price targets, and the name moves on that, right? Versus, it's a lotto on not a lot. Sorry, not a lotto, but you're gambling on earnings day, right? You could use a little bit of the history to kind of give you some sense or a little bit of edge on what a name's going to do on earnings, but really it's an unknown thing, that you're dealing with. And to me, there's not a lot of edge there playing names on earnings, especially ones that may run into the quarter. All right, so those are a couple names. A few other names that I'm watching, out of the tech and software space. Lennar, again, I think you just have to be patient with this one. And I'm being patient with Thinkorswim as well, as it's not adjusting. So maybe we'll come back to. Oh, there we go. Not yet. It still did not trigger today. Another name that I did trade today was UPS. This finally gave the move above value, right? So what I'm generally looking for is names that are in consolidation, and then I want to see a close above value. Why is that important? Because this indicates range bound, right? I want to play breakouts. I want to be in what's called price discovery, right? This is now in price discovery, right? It's coming out of the range. All right. So again, a lot of these concepts are regarding trend trading, right? Which is one of the philosophy that I follow. So that's a couple things. Here's my trade blotter for the day. You can see what I did. A couple things kind of worked the way things have been working for me this week. Like I got into Twilio, got one target, and then it just really didn't have a lot of momentum to it. Zoom was another one that I traded, had a little bit of momentum, and then kind of stalled a bit. Where did Zoom finish for the day? Probably on the highs. 496. I was looking for my second target at 500. I didn't get it, so I did take the name off there. And then AMD worked for a nice day trade. And then I did start a Nvidia trade, and I had already been holding on to some stock from about a week ago. Yeah, that's Zoom. And and I took one target on my UPS trade. So that's it, guys. Again, if you've been listening to my videos for a while, you know that I've been, and I think pretty rightly so, stressing to be patient, to not overtrade and take on too many positions when the wind is in your face, as it's been for the last couple weeks. But now we'll see if we can kind of turn the corner a little bit. So this has me more excited about the market than I've been in the last few weeks. Previously I thought we could have a little bounce here and there, but what I'm really looking for is for the market to kind of reverse and get out of this downtrend. Again, that is to be continued for next week, and we'll be going through a lot more analysis for members in the two videos that I put out for the week. All right, guys, enjoy your weekend and have a great night.